Welcome to another episode of my podcast. I'm very, very, very excited. I've been excited for most of my guest episodes. I always love talking to people who I'm fascinated by, and this is no exception to that. I'm very excited to have on this guest because, you'll see why. This guest is based out of New York. Are you based out of New York? Okay, based out of New York. His name's Daniel Nicholas, and he is a magician, a mentalist. What else?
Magician, mentalist, illusionist, mind reader.
He's everything. I'm very excited because I'm skeptical. I want to be skeptical. I want to be like, we were talking about this before. We had some time to get to know each other because I've never met you.
Right. First time
the reason I got you on the podcast is because I was on Instagram, as I always am. I'm addicted. And I saw one of my friends posted a selfie with you, and she said, like, oh my God, just had this incredible experience with Daniel Nicholas magic, like whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. I'm going to be in New York. I need to get you on the podcast. Yep. And so we're here. And
we made it.
It's been a while since I've had magic, since I've seen magic, whatever. And so we were talking about this. Anytime I'm like watching something where magic is happening on like Hulu or whatever, I'm like, who's the plant in the audience? Like, how is this all going so well?
Right.
So I want the audience to know if I'm not impressed by something, if nothing happens, I'm not going to like try and play it, as though you did
So this
something.
is evidence that I didn't pay her, or I didn't pay her enough, for those of you who are wondering.
Yeah.
She's not going to go along with it, which I like. We want this to be organic and legit.
But we did talk about this a little bit, like, when I was in high school, we had like our senior night where everyone like gets fucked up at school and it's totally acceptable. It's like a 24-hour party. They say you can't do drugs, but everyone's doing drugs. They're drinking.
In the gymboree.
Yeah, and then they of course have like a hypnotist.
Right.
And I'm on Molly, and and I want to get hypnotized because I want to be the center of attention. I want people to see me on stage. This was before I did stand up, but I knew I needed attention.
Yeah, the spotlight was calling.
So he's like, who's open-minded to this idea?
Right.
And I'm like, bitch me, like, get me on that stage. I'll show you how open-minded I am. And then he like does a couple tests to see who out of this large group he's going to select.
Right.
And I'm going along with it because I just want the stage time. And then he hypnotizes everyone, but it doesn't work for me. And so I'm like, this guy's a crook, and the reason it's working is because no one wants to stand out and be like, you're wrong.
Right.
You're like, I want to, quack like a duck. I want to be a goofball and have it be acceptable because I'm hypnotized. And you were talking about how, maybe on that stage there were 2 people or 3 people who had actually worked on, and the rest are just going with it.
Well, I think, don't quote me on the statistic here, but I read it in a book once, but I think that there's, let's say you have 10 people come up on stage for some sort of hypnosis demonstration, only 1 or 2 will actually be under the influence of hypnosis. And actually what he did was a gauge to see who's susceptible, who has an open mind, willing to accept the suggestions that he's going to give you. Obviously, your hand went right up, you're going to be open-minded. So they say that only 1 or 2 people will actually go into a trance because it's all very conditional. You have to be in the right mindset. Obviously, being in a loud auditorium under the influence of Molly is not going to put you maybe in the best position to be hypnotized. But the other 8 people on stage, I think 1 or 2 don't get hypnotized, don't go along with the induction, none of that. They send them back to their seat. And then the other 6 might be like you, under social pressure, knowing that the whole audience is expecting to see some shit that's going to entertain them, and you're going to deliver.
Yeah,
and
I'm a sheep.
That's what happens.
I'm a sheep. I knew from that moment, I was like, I'm a follower.
Right.
I'm a sheep.
Right. You were ready for it.
But also, so we had some time to get to know each other, and you had a deck of cards.
Yeah, actually, let's
do you want to do it now?
Well, I'm not going to do it right this second, but I'm going to bring
Okay.
attention to it. So on the camera, you can see I have a deck of cards, regular bicycle deck of cards. I'm actually going to give this to Allie.
That's what they all say.
That's what
it's
they
just
all
a
say.
regular deck.
Yep. Yeah. And actually, on a side note, not only is it a regular deck, but Allie brought a little gift from probably about 1970, if you want to show everyone.
Which is crazy. Well, first of all, you said not to open this or anything.
Yes. So I actually made a little prediction in there. There's a chance.
Is it just a drawing of a dick and Sharpie?
Yeah,
You're like, I know exactly which one.
Then you can't go wrong if you do that, right? So actually, I don't want to tell you too much about it.
Okay.
I will tell you it involves this marker and it involves another deck of cards, but I have it all set up. It's ready to go. If everything goes according to plan, you should see what I mean a little later. So we'll decide that. You can make note that I've given you the deck. I'm not going to touch it or do anything funny to it from here on out until we bring it back into play.
And I genuinely have not looked at
or
it.
set anything up. I didn't ask you to tell me a specific
I want
card,
you to be like,
right?
I want you to be right, but I also want you to be wrong. You know, like
part of me wants to be wrong too, but
Yeah.
the rest of me is like, don't screw this up. So.
And then I got excited because I showed you I love cards. I'm very fascinated
cool.
by them. There's also like
Definitely
people who do because there's 52 cards in a deck.
Mm-hmm.
There's 13. What is it? It's like cards of life. Like some people instead of horoscopes, they do cards of life because everyone has a card.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
There's
There's like
52
numerology.
weeks in a
There's
year.
tarot. There's a connection with the calendar to the deck of cards. I believe if you add up all the values, like an ace is a 1, a 3. For example, a jack would be an 11. If you add up all the values out of the 52 cards, it totals to 364. And then 365 would be the Joker. And then for leap year is the extra Joker. So you have the 2 Jokers, 4 suits, 4 seasons. What else is there? There's a lot of parallels between reality and the origin of the deck of cards, both in tarot and in traditional poker cards, which have evolved from the French courts.
Wow. Yeah, so you knew a lot. I brought in my deck of cards because I always carry a deck of cards with me.
Yeah, which, by the way, I was super shocked. She was not kidding. She's like, I have a deck with me, and she pulled it right out of
And it wasn't like a special thing where I was like, I just always have a deck because my grandma, we used to always play card games.
Right.
And I was at my mom's house. I stayed with her at the beginning of COVID, and my mom was like, oh, I have this deck that was grandma's. And so I took it, and it's super old, and you knew so
right
much
away.
about it.
I looked at it. I was like, oh, that's from the Sahara Casino in Las Vegas.
It's made in the U.S.
It's not around anymore. I actually have some World Series of Poker Sahara decks.
Wow.
Yeah, printed in the U.S.
Do you like playing card games?
I do, but unfortunately, no one will play with me. So
I would play with you in a heartbeat.
All right, cool.
Do you know about 13 or Tianlin?
No,
it's
is
like
that a
Vietnamese poker or something.
No, I never heard of it.
Oh, it's so fun.
Is it? I like the game Palace, and I love poker.
That?
Palace is it's kind of like a game of luck, and also there's an element to skill, a little play. I could show you maybe afterward, but it's a fun game. I don't know where I learned it, but it's a great game to drink too. So
card games are so fun.
Yeah,
I grew up
you can
playing
go anywhere
them
in the world, and you can find a deck of cards.
Yes, I feel like it's a great way to like get to know people, meet people. Like if you're having like a weird, well, maybe not on a date. It's not the best. I don't know if you've had that experience.
Yeah, no,
of, like,
cards
really...
and dates don't go so well. Take that from a magician.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a good like. I was with, who was it? It was like a family event, and I was like, I don't really want to talk to anyone. Like there comes a point in the event where it just gets kind of stale, and then people start bringing up past, drama, and you're like,
cue the playing cards.
So I was like, why don't we play a game of cards? And everyone, and then you're like talking about the cards, you're like talking a little bit of shit, but it's all playful. I feel like cards are a very good way to like unite people in a fun way.
Totally. I used to love that game BS growing up too. That's always a fun one.
Is that kind of where the mentalism comes into play?
Oh,
with
yeah.
BS?
You have to be able to read people, and you also have to be able to fool them, too. So a little bit of deception in there, too.
Yeah. I was worried because when we first met, we were talking about being able to read other people or being better at being read.
Right.
And I was worried because I've heard from people in the past that I put up a wall.
Yep.
I don't need this to turn into a therapy session.
No, it won't. Trust me. I don't want to go there.
There is a stone wall that I have built.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard for people to like read me.
You know what? And that's sometimes a good thing.
But I read you.
You did read me. She did read me.
It was crazy. He was like... Before, like, we were just hanging out, and you're like, okay, let's do something. And I'm like, save it for the podcast, save it for the podcast.
Yeah, so we actually have a bunch of fun things saved, but I legit handed her my phone and had her just guess at my passcode, a couple of random attempts. She didn't get in, and then I had to really, really just try to focus, but not think too hard. And lo and behold, did you unlock it?
I unlocked it. It was crazy.
Got the code right.
I was like,
so I'll be changing that, by the way, folks.
On the second digit, I was like, I've fucked this up completely. Right. And you could tell on the third digit.
On the third digit,
you were
like,
got
it wrong. What did you put, by the way, on the third digit?
The third digit, I think at first I put 6.
Yep.
But I knew in my head, I was like, the third digit is 8. And then I was like, but I want it to be 6.
The similarity in the shape. So you were partially getting it, but I had a feeling that you were the wrong number. And I was like, okay, delete that last number. Don't think about it so much and put the first one that comes to your mind.
And it was crazy because the first one that came to my mind was 8.
Yep.
But in my head, I'm like, I want it to be 6.
Right.
I want your password's third number to be 6.
And if it worked that way, that'd be great. But unfortunately, it doesn't. And I'm glad you didn't, because then it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked, and I would have been like, haha, I knew it.
Yes.
You scam
Burn 'em at the
artist.
stakes.
Yeah. But you said maybe there's a chance that you're gonna guess my phone password.
Yeah, I could absolutely do that. I mean, that just comes down to whether or not you're comfortable with me doing that, obviously on live in front of your audience.
I'm very comfortable with that.
I'm totally down. Do you want to give it a shot now?
Yeah.
Right, cool.
Yeah. I feel like, why not just start the episode?
Let's start it with that. We'll do something wild, and then you can ask me any sort of questions that you'd like, and we'll go from there. So obviously, you just unlocked the phone with your Face ID. So do me a favor, lock it.
Okay, it's locked.
And I'll take the phone back real quick. Now, I want the camera to be able to see this as well. Obviously, her phone is on Do Not Disturb. She got a lovely little orange or grapefruit as the background. And if I try to swipe up, it says Face ID, doesn't recognize my face. It says, you are not Allie, and it basically brings me to the keypad screen.
I love the people who are listening to this on iTunes or Spotify and have no idea.
Well, that's a great thing about Magic. Magic is able to bridge connections with people.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening, you should be able to get the same takeaway here, especially because you'll hear it in the reaction of her voice.
I'm so
those of you
excited.
who don't see this happen will be pretty freaked out. So I want you to focus on your code, and I want you to imagine that in front of you there is a PIN code pad, just like if you were approaching the ATM. And don't worry, don't think of your ATM passcode, because I don't want to wipe out your bank account. So focus on your code right now, the code for your passcode, and it's a 4-digit. Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay, do me a favor. I want you to just think of the numbers. Think of the first number, and I want you to imagine your finger scaling across the buttons, and just stop when you get to that number. Okay, good. So I almost felt you cycle back through the numbers. I don't know if this is a psychological thing, but
no, I'm not trying to mess you up.
No, that's okay.
As soon as you I have a little bit of ADD.
Yeah, me too. I have
and
the worst ADD.
All of the numbers just start cycling,
right. And
but
that's
I'm really trying to focus.
That's what I'm getting. So I want you to imagine your finger going through all of them, but then stopping at your number.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm almost feeling that it's a low number. I want to show you, but I kind of don't. So
okay.
I'm going to show the camera.
I'm not going to look.
I'm going to put that first number in here. I've got 1 out of the 4 numbers. I want you to think of the next number now.
Are you looking at where my eyes are going?
But I'm also trying to get some feelings here. So could you do me a favor? Can you repeat the numbers 1 through 9 out loud? Go ahead now. 1, 2, 3. A little quicker. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 0. So that was subtle. So she picked up because I obviously had stated for her to pick up. But you slowed down very slightly between 6 and 7. Will you just look at me?
Yeah.
6, 7. Yeah, so the nervous laugh on the 7. I'm going to go with the 7. So I have 2 out of the 3 numbers. The next one I'll do so you can see it. I want you to look at the keypad, and I want you to try not to look at your number. Okay, good. She's trying not, but her eyes are literally not moving right now. I'm going to go with a 6, and I want you to focus on the last number. Wait a minute. I can almost hear you in your head, and you're saying, Danny, it's not a 6. You're really close, though. It was a 3, wasn't it?
You're psychotic.
Okay, good. And I want you to just think of that last digit, and I want you to say that last digit over and over in your mind like you're saying 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. And I know you believe me, but they won't until I pull my finger away.
Wow.
And that is the passcode for Allie's phone. And can I send myself all your Bitcoin real quick?
Yeah. If only I had some. Holy shit. And for those of you listening, my password is 1738 from
is that like Fetty Wap
it's a song, yeah. 1738.
My cousin will get a kick out of that. He worked with Fetty Wap, so that's for you, Rob.
Wow. I'm impressed. Man. It's so
I can feel your heart is racing. I could even hear it. I could feel it.
It's so nuts because as soon as I start to realize that you're gonna get it, I'm just more and more.
That's when the emotions start building up.
Yeah, it's so what is that feeling like for you? Because that's got to feel good.
It's exhilarating. It's also nerve-wracking. I mean, because at any point in time, I could be wrong. I could follow the wrong intuition.
Yes.
I could just be reading people wrong.
And the craziest part was because on the third number that I guessed on your phone, where I didn't get it right the first time, you also didn't get it right on mine.
My first intuition was to go with the 3.
And I didn't know if I should tell you the way that you did to me, and you picked up on that.
And I'm glad that you didn't, because I almost was going to just go with it.
Yeah.
But then I was getting the emotion from you. She's like, oh shit, this guy's about to screw this up live on a podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe I should tell him, but you didn't.
I didn't.
But I knew, so that was a good thing.
Hey, sorry to interrupt this episode, but I have something very important to tell you guys that I didn't want to share in front of Daniel. I have new underwear, new bralettes. Look at how cute these are. Okay. I'm just going to, if you're watching the YouTube, I mean, now's the time to watch. You can see what bras and underwear I'm going to be wearing. I love this. This is from Parade. Shout out to Parade. I love their underwear. I've been a fan. I've talked about them before I even got sponsored. Look at these. They're so like soft and stretchy and comfy. I love Parade's underwear, and I've been dying to get sponsored by them, and it's finally happened. If you want to get a girlfriend, a mom, I don't know if you'd want to get your mom underwear. One time I got my dad underwear for Christmas, and everyone thought it was the weirdest thing ever. Look at it. It has like a little peekaboo little mesh thing on top. So if you got some upper bush, it can just pop through that. Like when you go to one of those salons where they cut your hair through the holes in the cap. That's kind of like this. You can trim your bush through it. I like it. It gives the bush some room to breathe. I just also like these underwear. They're super comfortable. Like I said, I've talked about it before. If you're a male listener, don't skip forward, okay? Have some underwear at your place, give them to your girl, or give them to someone who... Here's the thing when you hook up with a stranger, okay? You don't always... Not every woman anticipates bringing a change of underwear. Imagine what a pimp you would look like if a girl goes over to hook up at your place, you open the drawer, and you're like... Pick underwear, pick a pair. Because girls don't want to put on their crusty underwear the day after or that night. It's so foul to expect us to do that. Look at how cute these ones are. They're like a tie-dye mesh underwear. Okay, and the reason why I'm excited about this is because I have talked about them on the podcast before. I was talking about a competitor's underwear that I wasn't a fan of, that every podcast is sponsored by. And the competitor's underwear falls apart after like 3 washes. I have underwear that looks like it has a... What are those tzitzi? The things that Jewish people wear every time they make a mitzvah, the nice, you know, the braids that go down their outfits? I have underwear that looks like that because all of the fabric has fallen off after like 3 washes. Guess what? I've had Parade for a very long time, at least 2 years, and none of my underwear by them has fallen apart, and they're all so cute. It feels like if Coachella was just in your pants. That's what these underwear are. They're cool, they're comfy, they're cozy. Like, I want to, like, whenever I wear Parade underwear, I'm like, I just want this to be my outfit. And they've gifted me with the bralettes. I haven't had the bralettes yet, and guys have no idea what a bralette even is. Guess what? It's like a bra that doesn't even support. This is like one step closer to freeing the nipple. There's no wire in this. There's no frills. It's just a comfy little hug for your breasts. So, I don't know, there's cute matching ones. I normally mix and match. Like, here's the thing, I have these underwear. I think this ad's only supposed to be a minute, but I love these underwear. I'm not just trying to be a sellout right now. I genuinely think that these will up. You know when you're having a bad day and you're like, oh, I wish I had, like, lucky underwear to make me feel better. I don't know if these are lucky, but you'll definitely get lucky wearing these. Okay, so look at this bralette. Match it. I mean, if you're listening to the audio, just trust me on this. This bralette matches these underwear, but this bralette also matches these other orange underwear, in my opinion. So, okay, go to yourparade.com/AllieMac. That's yourparade.com/ALIMAC. You get 20% off when you spend $40 or more. And honestly, I think if you're shopping, the bralettes start at $28 and the underwear starts at $8. So get like one bralette or get 2 bralettes and get your 20% off. Or in my opinion, I would say get one bralette, get a couple pairs of undies, and then use my code AllieMac, ALIMAC, for 20% off. Parade is great. They donate their money to LGBTQ plus organizations, and they invest in accessible sex education. That's very important. And they just have so many options, and they have sizes going from extra small to 3XL. So they have a lot. I really think that you should try them out. At least just go to their website. You don't even need to buy anything. Just check out all the cute stuff they have. It's Your Parade, yourparade.com/AllieMac, ALIMAC. You're going to love it. I promise. Okay, back to the pod. Wow, that is so wild. And like, how many times have you tried to do that and it doesn't work? Like, what is the ratio?
It doesn't always work. The ratio, it'd be a tough guess for me to say, but you know, it really depends on the information. If I don't get something right, like a PIN code, maybe that just means that the person doesn't have enough emotional connection to that thing that they're thinking of. Maybe it's just meaningless, so I got to change gears and say, okay, well, maybe think of like the name of your first kiss or something that holds more weight or gravitas in your life. And then that would actually work a little bit easier.
It makes me like want to change my passcode and then like do it again just because it's so fun. It feels so. I don't know why there's such a like. Is there some sort of like psyche? What's the word? Like why does it feel so good? Like why am I on a high right now just by you guessing that?
You know, that's what it is. Like you're just interacting with me and experiencing something that's so foreign to you. I mean, you may have seen something like this or experienced magic, whether it be in person or online, but you're getting a visceral production of dopamine right to your brain. It's like the best drug you can get because it's something that you can produce. I don't know if it's endless supplies of, but your brain chemistry is able to produce dopamine at any given time almost. So it's a pretty powerful drug. I feel like I just got an
EpiPen.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. And you know what? That's what keeps me going because the same type of dopamine that's being produced in you, that's what I live for. I live for the reactions. I don't do magic to fool you, to try to deceive you, or to put some sort of mental prowess over you. It's not about that because magic is always about the spectator. Yeah. So if I'm able to give you an experience that's unique to make you feel a certain way, that's why I do what I do. So I get the same rush that you get. So that feeling that you have is reciprocated, and I'm feeling the same way right now.
And that's kind of like we were talking about the similarities between magic and comedy because it is one of those things where you tell your parents and they're a little bit disappointed. They're like, why don't you get a normal job? Yeah, exactly. This is kind of embarrassing.
But I want to be a wizard, Mom.
Yeah. Especially with magic, I feel like there's even more of a stereotype.
Oh,
because
100%.
I put it on my Instagram, you know, for people to send in questions, and it was so many of the same annoying, boring questions. But I'm sure that you've heard it all before. When people find out that I do comedy, they're like, tell me a joke. I'm sure the same happens.
Oh, yeah, show me something. Or they get the cute little lines like, oh, can you make my wife disappear?
That I got. Can they tell me? Yeah, I got that in the questions as well.
You know, and also when you think of magicians, there is, like you said, there's that stereotype. You know, you don't think cool, you don't think suave. Although most of the magicians out there who've made a name for themselves are very much that. But when you think of a magician, you might think of like a child's birthday party or, you know, your Uncle Bob who pulled a coin behind your ear when you were 6. And
I did have a Grandpa Bob who would pull coins, but there's always this like weird thing where it's like, this feels creepy. A little bit creepy. Yeah, I'm like, you've never touched me, but pulling a coin from behind my ear feels inappropriate. Yeah,
it's a violation for sure.
But I think that's also why I was going to say like.
What's that behind you? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, I was about to freak out. I can only handle so much.
Right, that's funny.
If you pulled some shit, I can't.
I'll save that for the next podcast.
But I think like when we were talking about the dopamine and why I get so excited and why most people, it's almost like this level of intimacy.
Yeah, totally.
Where it feels like someone has seen me or like.
Yeah, you feel violated, but in like the best kind of way.
Yes. You know? Where I'm like, you know.
As much of an oxymoron as that is.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because you get it. You feel
a happy violation.
A happy violation, right.
Yeah, you're mentally assaulting people. A lot of people are getting canceled for sexual assault, and you're like, I only do mental assault.
Do mental assault. Yeah. That's my forte.
And then the other thing, like with magic, there's a community of magicians.
Yeah, totally. Very small community.
Yes. With comedy, I feel like there's so many people who try and do stand-up because I think with comedy, there's like a cool factor, especially for dudes. They're like, oh, if I'm funny, I'll get laid and whatever. Definitely. Do people go into magic to get laid or is it almost like...
I wouldn't say so. If anything...
It's kind of the opposite, right?
If you're doing magic at a young age, you're probably not getting laid.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, when I was getting into it, I loved magic. I was just obsessed with it. Ever since I was a little kid, I needed to know how things work. My background is actually as an engineer. I have degrees in engineering. I worked as a project manager, had a successful career. My wife is the one who actually told me, fiance at the time, to quit, to literally quit my career as an engineer and to go and become a full-time magician. And she's probably partially kicking herself, but also partially patting herself on the back right now because it has opened up so many doors for me. I do what I love. I travel all over the world. I get to meet amazing people, regular people, celebrities, athletes. I get to work for great companies, and and I get to see some side of the world that I never thought I would see doing what I love. So
yeah,
it's fun. It's definitely fun.
When you were young, so I'm also a very curious person. That's why I like being skeptical of magic and skeptical of things, because if I don't know how you answered my phone lock or how I did, I'm like, I need to know.
You need to know.
And I think that's probably why magic is so addicting, because if you get into it, you get to unlock all.
I needed to know how things worked as a kid. I would take apart the remote control, and half the time I wouldn't be able to put it back together. But, I just loved understanding why things worked a certain way, how things worked. And actually, it was the Greatest Magic Revealed. That was the name of the special. I don't know if you remember back in the 90s. I'm a 90s baby. But when we had the unlocked cable boxes, the illegal cable boxes that would get you all the pay-per-view channels and HBO without the subscription. They used to air, I don't know what channel it was on, but The Greatest Secrets of Magic Revealed. And it was a long special.
Oh, I think I remember this.
The Masked Magician, Val Valentino.
I watched this I was in Catalina for 4th of July.
Yeah, I think they recently might have brought it back to Netflix or something.
This was a while ago. I think it was on VHS or something.
Yeah, those were the days. I remember popping my VHS, like a blank one, or probably like a family video that I should have never recorded over and got yelled at for. But I would pop something in the VHS and record it and just watch it on repeat. And I would watch the segment of them showing the trick before they revealed the secret. And my thing was to try to see if I could figure it out and to see if I was right. A lot of the times I was way off.
Yeah.
But it was still always fun. To me, that was like part of the experience.
Oh, here it is.
There you go. We got it right there. Magic's
All
Greatest
new
Secrets.
series.
So you can see he wears that creepy mask. He kept his identity concealed for quite some time, actually. He ended up being blacklisted by the magic community. I was too young to really remember this.
How does someone get blacklisted?
It's kind of more of like a social pressure than anything, because I'm pretty sure he's probably still doing his thing. But his name is Val Valentino. He did a couple of seasons of the show, revealing some of the greatest stage illusions and even some close-up effects.
Wouldn't that be a way to get blacklisted? Like, isn't the whole thing of magic to keep it?
Well, that was the whole idea. That's why he did get blacklisted, because he kept his identity concealed. He wore a mask on stage. He got a big production deal with whoever produced it. And
is Chris Angel Val Valentino?
Right, that would be the ultimate twist. They kind of look alike, dark features.
I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I know. Well, now, like, you look back on it, and back then, all the magicians, I was probably 5-6 years old. All the magicians were up in arms, like, who is this guy exposing all of the secrets of magic? People are gonna see it and take the fun out of magic and the mystery and the wonder. But it actually did the opposite. It did the opposite for me, because it created mystery, it created wonder. It pulled me into the art. And if he didn't do that special, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now with you talking or doing any of the things that I've done over the course of my career. So, Val, thank you. And don't reveal any more magic, but good job.
Because I think that's true. It's like magic is special and exciting because we don't know.
You don't know. It's the unknown.
Obviously, there's a way it's happening, and I'm the type of person who's like, I want to know.
Well,
but I know as soon as I find out, it's like, well, now it's not fun.
Right. Well, there's three. I think, no one's ever really said this, but I think there's three types of people when it comes to magic. There's the ones who want to know and need to know. So they just are desperate for the secret. If they don't know how it works, they hate it. They get frustrated. They feel defeated. Again, this goes back to saying this is not some sort of leverage of what I can do that you can't, or that I'm better or smarter than you somehow. But sometimes the audience can interpret it that way, and they don't like that, and they don't like knowing. Then you have the group of people who know that there's techniques and a lot of practice and things that go into achieving what you do, but they don't want to know how it works. They enjoy the mystery, and they take it for face value. Those are my favorite type of spectators. Not that you're not, because I think you're somewhere in between.
I think that's where I'm at.
I think you kind of want to know, but you also appreciate the mystery
of it.
I
like the feeling of being surprised and excited. So it's like, as much as I want to know, I know it's better off.
Not knowing.
Because it's not like if I know, I'm going to be able to do it. So
right. And how much peace of mind will it really give you if you actually know it? Like you answer that question to yourself and you go, okay, not much. I'd rather just have the mystery.
Yeah.
And then I think the third person, or the third group, are the people who really truly believe that everything that you do truly is magic. And that's usually children or other people.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll save the select words for that. But people generally believe that I'm a mystic and that I can heal them and all this crazy shit that obviously I can't do. But I mean, what I do is obviously a combination of deception and technique and trickery, but I'm also using psychology and influence and body language and observation and intuition to give the illusion that I'm a mind reader.
Yeah.
So
what are like the common, or what's kind of like an annoying thing, or what takes the fun out of it by revealing that you do magic or mentalism? Is that the right word? Mentalism?
Mentalism, yep, that's
Okay.
the right word. I do mentalism. I'm a mentalist. Can you rephrase the question for me? I'm not sure if I got that.
So, like, when people say, like, can you make my wife disappear?
Right.
Or, like, what are kind of, like, the thing? Because for me, it's like, don't ask me to tell. Like, that's why I was nervous to have you on the podcast. I wasn't expecting you to do any magic
yeah, we're just
because
having a conversation and having a good time.
I know for me, it's like, I don't want to be put on the spot. Comedy's a little bit different.
Well, I guess the best parallel I can kind of create to that is that people just expect it. So, you know, obviously what I do brings people joy. It creates dopamine, a physical chemical release in their brain that makes them feel a certain way. So people are addicted to it. They want it. They want to see it. They want to feel it. I could do 10 shows in a week and be exhausted from working and then show up at a family barbecue or a friend barbecue where we're drinking, having a good time, just hanging out. And somebody will come up to me and say, hey, this is my buddy from college who's meeting all of you for the first time. You got to show him something. And, you know, most of the time I'm down. I'm always game to have a good time and to, you know, share what I do. But a lot of the times recently, after transitioning from it being just a hobby to now being a sole source of income and my career and what I do for a living, it gets to the point where I don't always want to perform.
Yeah.
You know, that's like if you came over my house just to hang out and have dinner and I said, Allie, go do a stand-up set for my friends real quick. Just 5 minutes. They'll love it. Just 5 quick minutes. You'd be like, dude, what the fuck? You know?
Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but with comedy, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but like so much of stand-up is the environment, being around other people, being like buying tickets, having your night, like looking forward to that, going to the show, you know, like all of that plays into the show, the temperature of the room, like everything really like makes a show better or not as good.
Yep, totally.
And so when I'm, you know, just out and about and someone's like, be funny, I'm like, this isn't.
Yeah, it feels like dance monkey dance type of a thing.
I'm like, naturally I'll be somewhat funny, maybe, depending on my mood. But like, if you want to see me be funny,
you never want
to
force
go to
anything
show.
too. So when you're in that situation and somebody's forcing you, and I use that word loosely, when someone is requesting you on the spot to perform or to tell a joke, or hey, you know, it's like if you were a plumber and I said, hey, I got a leak in my basement and you're just here at a barbecue and I said, come down, you're doing work. You're taking them out of their comfort zone in that moment. And again, I've learned to draw the line. You know, now that it went from a hobby to a full-time career and I started getting requested to perform and we were out just hanging out, I would get frustrated at first, but then I realized like, okay, I need to draw a line because what's happening is I'm forgetting to separate passion from profession. Yeah. And what has always been a passion for me is now feeling like work when people are saying, show me something, show me something. And I never wanted to lose that flame. Yeah. What keeps me going, that thing that I thrive off of. So I've figured out how to toe the line and I figured out how to deal with people in that scenario. And more likely than not, I'll oblige. And if I'm really, really tired or just burnt out, I'll say, hey, you know, maybe a little bit, let me grab a drink and I'll show you something afterward. And a lot of the times they'll either just forget, or if they're really that interested and they push the button, then they'll get to see something.
Yeah. But do you feel like with magic, it's a little bit easier to do it, or certain things like outside of the typical environment where you feel the most comfortable doing it?
Sometimes the environment is really important. Having a good environment is a good thing. But I also think that there's something special about having it be impromptu. You know, like I wasn't even necessarily expecting to try to guess your passcode today, but because we just went with the vibe, it ended up being more impactful for you because you're like, how the hell could he have known this? Yeah. So, you know, it's things like that are off the cuff that also make things more special. So, you know, you kind of have to take it as it is, take it with a grain of salt and appreciate it for face value.
Yeah. I want to show you a trick.
Uh-oh, she's got one. You didn't tell me that. This is impromptu.
I didn't tell you this. This is a very bad trick. I mean, I imagine, know this trick because it's the easiest trick in the book.
Well, this is how my wife picked me up, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, everyone thought it would be the opposite. Me.
Wait,
showing
what
her the trick.
happened? How did you guys meet?
Well, we met in college, but obviously I carry a deck of cards around me everywhere I go. And even if you look in most of my pants pockets, these are fairly new pair of pants, but
you got the card outline?
I get like the outline from the denim stretching out where the deck is.
Yeah.
And
How often do you have to buy a new deck?
Well, during this time, like COVID, I pretty much use a new deck every show I do just to make the audience comfortable. Doesn't bother me, but just toss them out. It's a commodity, disposable, throw them away. But I'm also a playing card collector. I have one of the largest collections in the world. A lot of people have started collecting more and more over the years. So people are catching up to me, which is a good thing because I need to cut back. And my wife is definitely nodding her head and agreeing.
Yeah.
But I have somewhere close to like 10,000 decks in my collection.
Wow.
Which is
where do you keep them?
Enough to build a house of cards.
Yeah.
Where do I keep them? In my house. I have a big studio at home. It's like an office, magic lab, that kind of a thing. And I just have closets and shelves filled with cards from the Civil War. I have cards that are pre-Civil War, like 1700s. Cards that are hand-painted from that era. I've got cards from World War I and II, casino decks like you're holding right now, the Sahara Casino. I actually have a variation of that one. Yeah, I don't think it's standing anymore. But.
And you were telling me that these cards, they have kind of like
yeah, they're 8. Well,
they have like a divot in them. What's it called?
Oh, yeah. So you're referencing
So like right here, there's like a little cut. Right there. It's like it's
yeah, they call that canceling the cards. So casinos will frequently either chip out a divot on the side of the profile of the deck, just like she has there, or more commonly you see on the newer cards or post 90s, they'll cut the corner, like a big cut off the corner, or they'll punch a hole through, or drill a hole rather through the whole deck, and then that way, if you go to the gift shop or the swap meet down the road and you find a casino deck, you can't go to the casino and swap that card in.
Would be nice though.
It would be nice.
It would be nice. Do you ever go to the casino?
I do. But
do you have fun? Or are you like blacklisted from casinos?
More or less. I mean, if I went, I think it's like discrimination. There was like a lawsuit against this from the Society of American Magicians, or somebody wanted to file a class action, but essentially certain casinos were able to get a blacklist of all the registered magicians that are part of the club.
Wow, like registered sex offenders.
Yeah, pretty much. And these are just magicians who are hobbyists. Some of them are professionals, but they're registered and they pay their dues every year to be part of the club. And if you win over a certain amount, when they ask for your ID to make sure you're not a felon or on probation or whatever,
or a magician,
they could legally deny you your winnings.
Wow.
So it was like a big thing. But if I go, I'm usually, just to play it safe, I play low limit tables, or I give my wife my chips and she'll go to the cage and cash them out. And
it's so fun. Gambling is so
it's addicting.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
That's what we're talking about, the dopamine.
I'm going to Vegas right after this.
Oh, okay, nice.
Do you have like a favorite casino in Vegas?
I like the Bellagio and the Cosmo. Those have fun vibes. I mean, I performed at the Bellagio. I performed at the Aria and the nightclub. I've never had a residency down there, but I don't intend to. I just could never live full time in Vegas. I mean, I'm based out of New York, and I work all over the world in the U.S., but I could just never live full time there.
That was another question I had so with comedy, there's so many different like paths you can take with being a comedian. Some people's goal is to have a Netflix special or Hulu or Showtime or whatever. Some people's goal is to have a TV show that they write and create. Some people just want to be touring comedians. Yep. I imagine it's similar.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone has different aspirations. For me, I just love the ability to connect with people. So as long as I'm working, whether it's a small private show or if it's a large event for celebrities like the one that you heard about me from, it doesn't matter who I'm performing for. If I'm performing for people, I'm happy.
That's how I feel with stand-up.
What I love. There's different environments. Obviously, I do close-up entertainment and I do stand-up. Close-up is what you would imagine at a cocktail party.
So it's called stand-up?
Yeah, I call it stand-up. I do a
so
stand-up show.
So the opposite of close-up magic would be like stand-up.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, let me clarify just so I'm not confusing you. But close-up would be like what you would imagine if you've ever seen a professional entertainer, mystery entertainer, magician who's worked like a cocktail hour at a wedding or a party. We walk around, we mingle. The entertainment, the magic, the mind reading is happening up close and personal. Maybe groups of 3 to 5 at a time. And then on the flip side, we have stand-up. Stand-up is where I'm performing for a seated audience, just like a stand-up comedian. You're on stage, you're on a mic, everybody is seated, and it's a one-through performance. So from start to finish. I like both. I think they both have their different elements that I appreciate, a lot of the times my clients will sandwich it and they'll say, hey, we want you to do a little bit of close up and then after dinner do a full length show or whatever length show and then do a little bit more after. So I kind of custom tailor it for whatever the client needs.
I'm going to start doing close up stand up.
Close up comedy?
Close up comedy. I'm just going to get right in the middle of it, sit on someone's lap.
In Starbucks and make them laugh, you know?
So even just like shuffling the cards in front of you, I'm like...
nervous, yeah.
I'm like, I want to do a good shuffle. My hands are a little bit moist. The cards are getting stuck on my fingers. But so how long does it typically take to like really? Because you were doing all these like cool, like the water fountain. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, there's some flourishes and Cardistry. Cardistry is like a whole niche, but those cards, I was telling her that they're printed by the United States Playing Card Company, which is hands down the best playing card company in the world. And
that's right. I have the best cards.
And they're vintage, which makes them even more cool. But I was just showing her how sharp the edges are cut. So when a deck of cards is printed, it's printed on a sheet, like a poster. And a blade comes down, and they perforate the cards, but then a blade comes down and it cuts the cards into individual cards, and then they get collated into the deck. Now what happens is kind of like a steak or a piece of wood. When that blade cuts down, even though the paper is super thin, it creates a grain. And it creates a direction. So I took the cards and I weaved them into each other. And even though this deck
that was crazy. Do you mind trying
I can
that
try.
again?
It's a little rough because they aren't.
They're pretty
new.
Old. And they're all moist now.
Yeah, it would work better with like a different deck.
But I didn't even realize that was like something you could do.
Right angle. But you can see that they kind of just weave right into each other. And that's a testament to the quality of
that's such
a
cool way to shuffle.
Now, if I were to take the cards this way and try to do that, you'll notice that there's resistance here. Yeah. And that's because the grain is only going in one direction. So in this instance, that's back to front, and that's where the resistance is. But if I turn the deck and I do front to back, the grain is now lined up, and then those cards will then weave right into each other. And again, mind you, this deck is
pretty old,
about 30 or 40 years old. So it's impressive to even be able to do it just with that.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So like you said that you got into magic from a young age. You were impressed by it. You loved it. What are like the beginning steps? Because maybe there's someone who's listening to this podcast who wants to get into it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I learned, the first thing that I did is I went to the library, and those magicians who follow me who are watching this are probably going to realize I'm about to say this wrong, but I think it's like 795.3. Somebody fact check me. It's the Dewey Decimal number for the magic section.
Okay.
So I went to that section. Obviously, I haven't been to that section in quite a few years. That's why the number is escaping me right now. But I literally went to the library, and every library in my town, and took out every single book on the topic of magic, conjuring, prestidigitation, you name it. You name it, I found the book on it. I went back home and I just spent hours reading the books, going through them. Half the stuff was way over my head, but I would just do what I could learn and demonstrate on my brother, and that's kind of how I got into it. So books are a great resource. There's a lot of really great free books out there on reading people, on learning card tricks and sleight of hand, and that's always a good starting step. And then if you're looking for a more in-depth resource, reach out to me on Instagram.
Daniel Nicholas Magic.
Yeah.
So sleight of hand, like what was kind of the process for you specifically in terms, because obviously you do magic, close up, stand up, and then you also do like mentalism and sleight of hand and all of that. Yep. So for you, what kind of came first, and then how did you start getting into the other
That's
areas?
A good question. I got into it with basic sleight of hand and simple mind games like influence tricks. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen anyone, they tell you to say the number 3 and then 33. So go ahead, we'll try it. It might not even work, but say 3.
3.
33.
33.
333.
333.
And go as far as you can, keep going.
Oh,
and just
I'm so bad.
It's okay, just go with it.
3,000.
There you go.
333. 33,333.
Now do me a favor, think of a vegetable now.
Carrot?
Exactly. And I was going to say it before you did, but the way that that's working, I was going to prove that I knew she would name a carrot, but that's influence. So basically 33, it's building a pyramid. What shape does a carrot have? It's kind of like triangular.
Oh, wow.
And I also told you to think of a vegetable, and I reinforced it with the V. So that's a kind of basic stuff that I learned in a book, and I would have friends do it, and I'd tell them, think of a vegetable, and I'd say, you're thinking of a carrot, aren't you? And they'd freak out.
It truly took me so long to make sure. In my head, I was like, is a carrot a vegetable? Is a carrot a vegetable? And then I said it out loud. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So there's other ways, I could ask you to think of a tool. You have a tool in mind?
Hammer.
Right. So now you're aware of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So she saw me with the hammer going like this, and she's obviously new. But if you do this, say, clear your mind, think of a tool. 9 out of 10 people will think of a hammer.
Yeah. Well, I used to play this game. I feel like I'm unlocking all of these childhood memories just by talking to you. But
Yeah.
I used to play this game with my cousins, and they first would do it on me. And I was like, how are you guys doing this? This is so annoying.
Oh, like the Swami game? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know what it was called, but essentially, like, we would have like a pool party. My cousins had a pool. We'd have people over, and they would play this game where they would say, since Tara's my daughter, I can read her mind and she can read mine because we have a close connection.
Right.
We have a bond. And so they would go around and they would be like, Tara knows what I'm thinking about. I'll list off, items that we could see, and then she'll say which one it is.
Which one it is. Yeah, my aunt and uncle did something very similar.
Yes, and so they would say like, "Oh, is it the light?" And she'd be like, "No." "Is it the fan?" "No."
Yep. And then you would know.
But the way that they would know is because they would use an adjective before. Is it the white
fan? Some sort of a code that you would use with each other.
Yes.
I think ours was like red, white, or blue. So we could repeat it, and then it was the item after the red item the first time. Then the next one, it would be the item after the white item. We'd always know. And my aunt and uncle would do it, and he would come out and he would say, "I'm the great Swami, and I'm going to read your mind." And maybe that's why I came up with the name when I just said it to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes back to the childhood and having that kind of thing around me.
So when your family did that, was that before you were interested in magic, or was that
my family they're odd people. I mean, we're artists and musicians and creatives from both sides of the family. So, I had that kind of an interest always in my family, that kind of a thing. Like my grandfather was the ultimate prankster. I mean, even in his late 90s, he passed away a few years ago, but he was a Marine, and he's just a hardy guy and always took care of himself. And even in his old age, when he was in the wheelchair, he used to do a little prank where he would take a spool of like white thread and put it in an inner breast pocket, and then he would weave the thread through. So there'd be like a white thread on his jacket, and somebody would come up to him and like pluck the thread off and be like, "Oh, there's a little thread." And then he would walk backwards or lean back, and he'd be like, "Oh, you're ruining my suit," like to prank them.
Yeah.
And even in his old age, this guy would still do it. He'd hit like reverse on his like motorized chair, and he'd go back, and he's 94. But he was the type of guy who had a quarter glued down onto a nail's head and nailed it into our floor in our house. So the house that I grew up in is the house that my dad grew up in, and we always had that quarter in the living room, and friends would come over and try to pick it up, and it wouldn't move. He was just a prankster. He was into that. So I think that kind of being around that, another shout out I'll give is at my very first birthday party, my parents hired a magician for my siblings, my older brother, my older sister, cousins, family. So they had a magician. Obviously, I was 1 year old. I couldn't really enjoy the show, but they had a magician for everyone else. Subsequently, we had magicians in different various years, my 5th birthday, whatever. I got into magic around that age. Now, fast forward from that point, probably about 18 years, I came home from college one summer, and I joined the local SAM, the Society of American Magicians, and they had a chapter on Long Island that I would drive out to and go to their monthly, once-a-month meetings. And I reconnected with Magic Jeff, who was the magician who did my first birthday. And now him and I are great friends.
How did you realize that he was the guy?
Because, there's not that many magicians out there that are professional on Long Island. And we had a picture of him growing up with that traditional fire wallet and my brother and sister in the photo, and him, making the flames come out of his wallet. And obviously, we had him do several other shows as I got older. So I always remembered Magic Jeff. And then as I got older, I linked the dots, and I told him, and he barely remembered doing my party. He was probably in his 20s. Yeah. And now he's, Jeff, I apologize, I'm not sure. I think he's over 50 now, but he's got a son who's a little bit younger than me in his 1st or 2nd year of college. And now we're great friends. We talk once a week. And it's just kind of funny how things come full circle.
Totally. I just unlocked another memory. I had a birthday. I think it was my 4th or 5th birthday. And it's so weird. I mean, this has nothing to do with the story, but I just find it kind of funny. I was living in Long Beach, and I was actually neighbors with Dylan and Cole Sprouse.
Okay.
The twins from Big Daddy. Their grandma. And so they were at my birthday.
Twins?
They're twins.
And they didn't utilize any crazy stuff that they could in that movie for
just
the fact
swapped,
that there was an extra
yeah,
one?
Instead of child labor laws, they're like, we'll just tag in the other brother.
Work half as much for the same pay.
And so they were at my birthday. It was I think my 4th or 5th birthday.
Okay.
And we had a magician, a kind of like a team of magicians. Is there a name for that? I think they were actually clowns, so now I feel bad.
Yeah,
but the clowns
there
did
were
magic.
high-end clowns who did magic.
They did magic.
Right.
And they made...
the bonus package.
I remember being very young, and it stands out to me. They made like one of the parents' bras come off.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, this is my 4th birthday, and I'm about to see some titties unexpected.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've seen variations where they do it to the men, and they like take 2 handkerchiefs in either side of the pants, and then they pull out like a pair of like pink lingerie panties, and the man is supposed to be embarrassed on stage, you know?
Yeah. But what was I going to say?
You were unlocking memories.
I'm unlocking memories left and right. What are like the stereotypes? Because when you were talking about growing up and being interested in magic, like a lot of people say like, oh, if you're a comedian, you must come from like a really bad childhood and have all this trauma. Is there kind of like a stereotype in the world of magic?
Definitely. I mean, I think the stereotype is only really perpetuated within the magic community, but you know, you were either a loner, didn't have many friends, you're a geek or a nerd, which by the way, I was all 4 of those things.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I could have been a magician with that description.
Right, we just fall right into the category. But those are pretty much the stereotypes, you know, because you had to have some amount of isolation to practice and learn.
Yeah.
There had to be something that pushed you in that direction, whether it was an interest for it or a lack of being good at other things. That wasn't necessarily my case. You know, I loved playing sports and all those other things, but I just loved magic. So that really pushed me to it. But a lot of magicians now will admit that, oh, yeah, the only reason I got into it is because I could never play baseball or, you know, this reason or that reason. Or, you know, I didn't have many friends. So this was a way for me to try to open up and learn how to talk to people.
Yeah.
You know,
and I'm sure it is a great way to do that. I think there's got to be some amount of finesse to it to make that work. Because if you're like, hey guys, want to see my magic? You're like, no, I'm good.
Right, exactly. It's like,
if you're like,
who are you? Why are you trying to?
Yeah, if you're like, I can blow your mind, then I'd be like, I'm in. Hey, it's me again. I wanted to read this ad, not when I was recording the episode with Daniel, so here I am. Isn't Daniel incredible? He blew my mind. And speaking of getting your mind blown, there's an app, there's a website called Dipsea, Dipsea, and it's like these erotic stories. So instead of like watching porn, which can be so catered to men, and honestly very predictable, you kind of know every time what you're going to get from porn. Dipsea is unique. It has so many different stories, and it lets you use your imagination a little bit more because it's not just showing you everything. I know for me, if I'm watching porn, I like have the phone in my face so I can see what's happening. It's so close to my eyes, it falls on my face, and then I'm thinking more about the FBI guy who's watching me touch myself than I am like enjoying the moment, you know? And I think for someone who's like especially in today's day and age when everything is like so overstimulating and distracting and stuff, Dipsea is so incredible because it's just audio. It's these, it's almost like role-playing scenarios, you know? It kind of gives you these stories and talks you through these different situations, like, you know, your hometown crush comes back for summer and he's finally got a thing for you, or like, you know, the girl or guy next door is down. They want more than just sugar to borrow. But it talks you through all of this. So you can have your phone off to the side. You don't need to have it right in your face staring at someone's massive dong, you know. This is a more playful way of pleasuring yourself. I like it a lot. You can listen to like trial, like if you go to their website, you can listen to like small little snippets to kind of get an idea. I don't know if I'm like really explaining it that well, but it's really cool. They have so many options. They have girl on girl stuff. They have guy on girl. They have guy on girl on third party joining them. They have so many things to listen to. And if you want to try it out, which I highly recommend, even if you want to just like listen to it to see what I'm talking about, you can go to Dipsea's website, Dipsea stories.com/AliMac. Dipseastories.com/AliMac. This is what I didn't realize. I was reading through what I need to talk about, and I was like, I got this. I already know. I've listened to some of these. I like it a lot. I'm a fan. I didn't realize this. If you need to wind down, Dipsy also has wellness sessions, sensual bedtime stories, and soundscapes to help you relax before you drift off. Imagine hearing some hot and heavy, sexy little like high school reunion type of Dipsy story where you get to make out with the football star who bullied you, and then you get to hear the rainforest right after to cool down. That sounds lovely. That sounds great. Dipsy Stories, DIPSEA stories.com/ALIMAC. You're going to get a full access free 30-day trial when you go to dipsystories.com/AliMac. Now back to the magic.
Yeah, or if like, you're in a conversation and you casually drop the fact that you're a professional magician and people are like, wait a minute. You're a professional magician? Well, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I think when you add the word professional in front, you're
yeah,
like,
right. Anytime
okay.
you preface it by adding
You've done all the awkward
nice
phases
adjective.
of like wearing a cape or whatever
Right,
and making parties weird.
all those studio headshots with the card fans
Yes.
and like,
Do you have those? The like.
I do. Unfortunately, I deleted all of them from
smart.
the history of the internet, so have fun finding it.
That's like the same thing with stand-up. Everyone's photos, it'll be like them with a microphone.
Yeah, with the
being
mic.
Like,
Meanwhile, the mic is like unplugged.
Or it's like a banana. It's a
Yeah.
banana microphone.
Yep.
Okay.
So you're going to show me something, right?
I'm going to show you my trick. It's very obvious. I have but I feel like there's a way to do it. And this is why like sleight of hand and distraction and disillusionment really come into play, because I have
Well, we're going to find out.
I mean, you already know the trick. There's no way you don't.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll pretend I'm amazed no matter what.
Okay, so I have a regular deck of cards. You've already seen them. You know they're a real deck. There's no jokers in here though, but you saw me shuffling it. I've done nothing to these cards, okay?
I'll take your word for it.
I'm going to I'm going to fan out the cards, and whenever you feel it in your heart and soul, just tell me when to stop, okay?
Stop.
Okay. Now do you see your card?
I do.
Okay. I haven't done this trick in a long time.
It's okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to shuffle the cards.
She's not nervous at all, guys.
I'm going to shuffle, and I'm going to guess. You know your card?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm just looking through it.
Should I write it down to show the audience?
Yeah, sure. And I have it ready.
Don't look at my notepad.
Okay. I already have it ready. Oh, fuck.
Oh, you just saw the screen?
I forgot.
We forgot that we're live monitoring the show on the screen.
I messed up. I chose this as your card, but it was the one behind it.
Okay, well, you know what?
You know how I did it,
though, We all can't be
right?
professional magicians out. No, I'm just kidding. That was a good effort. I mean, you were close. You were one off.
I was really trying to, like, sell it.
You know what? She's also just trying to prove that this is a normal deck of cards and that magic doesn't work 100% of the time. And while you have your deck of cards, we'll do something with your deck. Shuffle it.
Okay. Are there different names for the shuffling techniques? Because I saw my cousin shuffle and it irritated the shit out of me.
Yeah.
He did this. So he had his thumbs on the corner of the deck, and then he only did the corners shuffled, and it makes it so hard to bridge.
Yeah. So that creates less friction on the cards, which actually makes it easier to bridge at the initial because there's the less friction of the cards touching, but you kind of need to pivot your hands inward.
Yeah.
And then have them line up edge to edge.
I didn't like the way it looked. It really bothered me. Yeah. Do you have a favorite technique?
So that's what's called a riffle shuffle. And then
I'm a riffle girl.
Yeah, so obviously that's a riffle shuffle. And then there's also like, you can do it this way. This is like in India, they do a Hindu shuffle.
Oh.
So there's a lot of different ways to do, shuffling cards. But here's what we'll do.
Is there a way to tell that someone's like a noob or maybe someone's not as good as magic? Like because with comedy, when I'm watching certain comics, I'll hear a joke and I'll go, oh, they must be new because that's kind of like everyone's beginner joke.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can tell if somebody's nervous, how they handle the cards, where they're at. So, there are some tells in that regard. Yeah. But, I don't really see too many people out there working who aren't polished or don't really know what they're doing, more or less. So usually it's,
Are there like open mics for magic, or is it just kind of like a very lonesome?
Yeah, it's not the same like comedy. Like sometimes comedy clubs will have a space where they'll say, hey, we have an open spot. Any sort of talent can come and sing. But it's not always the best environment. So I haven't really done too many. I've done a handful at comedy clubs and stuff. But
okay, so what am I doing with this deck? I'm shuffling it.
So this is your deck of cards. Yeah. Regularly shuffled. All the cards are mixed. Actually, what we'll do is I don't even want to touch them or shuffle them or rearrange them in any way. You can leave them right on the table.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to see if I can make a prediction. And
this is different than the deck of cards that you brought.
Yes, yeah, because, well, both I really can't change, but that's going to be a little bit more of an impossible prediction.
My God.
But I'm going to just see, and again, what's so cool about it is this is a borrowed deck of cards. She's just shuffled them, so obviously there's no way I can know the order of the deck, but we'll try this. Okay, I'm going to write something down, similar to what I just did with the card that I was thinking of, that you were thinking of, rather, but this time this is a card that I'm thinking of. And I'm not going to show anybody yet. I'll place the pad down right here. We'll get back to it. You'll turn it over in just a moment. And if you flip it that way, actually, if you flip it this way.
But am I supposed to flip it now?
I'll tell you when. But if you flip it this way, you can flip it to the camera, and it will be oriented the right way. That way there's no confusion. Hold the deck in your hands.
Okay.
And what I want you to do is this is all going to be about feeling. Okay, so just hold it in one hand and put the camera in view. And I want you to just pick up about half the cards.
Okay.
Maybe about half the cards or a little less than half, whatever feels right. And bring your hands a little lower, just a little lower. Good. Now, here's what I want you to do. If that didn't feel right, if that didn't feel like the spot that you want to cut to, because again, where you cut is going to change the outcome of this.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't feel like the right spot, you can drop it and cut at a different spot.
Okay. I like when they're all even.
Yeah,
and like
good.
Flat.
That's what we
hate
call
when they're
squared up.
Squared up.
Yeah, when the cards are flush, we call them squaring up the cards.
Okay, I like
good.
this.
So that was
this feels heavy.
That was good. Now, does that feel right to you?
It feels right.
Because if you're not certain, you can even drop a little.
Okay, maybe we'll drop a little bit.
Good. And again, this is all her decision. Now take the part that you are holding.
Okay.
And turn it face up.
Okay.
And place it right on top of the deck face up.
Whoa, you know what's crazy? This is the card
That's
from
the card that I
before.
was thinking of. Okay, so because that's the one, and you could put the cards flush, squared up. Yep, just like they were normal.
Okay.
And because that was the card that you were thinking of earlier, I was
Was
gonna
that supposed to
stop
happen,
here.
or was that...
No, that's pure coincidence. I was gonna stop here, but because that card is too coincidental, we'll go one step further.
Okay, great.
So this time, what I want you to cut is
That is weird, though,
That
right?
is weird, yeah, coincidence. I mean, 1 in 52, the odds are not astronomical, but they're pretty slim. Do me a favor, this time pick up again, but maybe a little deeper
But
than
now
where...
these are all...
That's fine,
Okay.
don't worry. And cut a little bit deeper than where you cut last time.
Okay, I'm going to do a heavy little...
And turn that over once more, and then just place it flat on the deck.
Okay.
Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to spread through those face-up
Doesn't this
cards.
stress you out that some of them are up and down?
A little bit, but...
I have like weird... I'm like...
Well, don't worry. We're going to get through this quick anyway, and we'll put them back to normal. But hold the deck in your hands, and I want you to spread through the face-up cards. And I want you to, spread through the face-up cards. And I want you to stop once you get down to the very first face-down card, the card that I can't see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and just take all the face-up cards and just put them to the bottom of the deck. Turn them over and just put them back normal.
So
that way
now
you can feel
I
less
feel
OCD
good.
stressed
I feel
right now.
good.
So let's just think about this for a second. You shuffled the deck of cards. You cut it randomly several times. You cut to different positions. And now there's one card at the top of your deck.
Yeah.
What are the odds that the card that you randomly shuffled and cut to and made all the decisions of happens to match the card that I wrote down on the paper in front of you?
I want to say it's not a lot, but because you're magic, I'm going to say the odds are pretty good.
Pretty good. So she's confident in me, but she's right to say that the odds are pretty statistically impossible because not only do we have to get the exact position, but we have to get the exact card. So I think that's like 52 factorial, which if you do the math, I think that's like an endless number of possibilities.
Yes.
And mind you, I'm not a math major. I was an engineer, but not math. Turn over the top card. Let's take a look.
Oh, okay. It's a jack of
Clubs.
I call it the upside.
Okay, so I was
four-leaf
close.
over.
I was
Okay.
close. Why don't you flip it over and show
Oh, it's
everyone
gonna
what I
be.
wrote?
It's gonna be exactly. What is it? God damn it! That is so wild.
And again, I mean, this deck of cards came from your purse.
That is so wild.
And I wrote down the card even before you even cut the cards.
Yeah.
The cards weren't even mixed or shuffled at this point, and I made this kind of an open prediction.
What? I mean, I don't want you to reveal anything.
You know
but
what?
Like,
now that you're warm, let's continue this real quick. I just want to
Okay.
kind of continue this.
yeah,
So,
I'm so down.
before I came in, I even asked you to think of a place.
Yeah.
Now, do you happen to remember that place still?
I do.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you happen to know the population of this place that you're thinking of?
Roughly.
Roughly? Okay.
Well, and I want to say the reason why is because you asked me privately to look at the population, so I had an
right.
idea.
So, because I said to her, I said, hey, listen, I want you to think of a place, but I don't want you to think of a place that you wouldn't know. I also don't want this to be a place that's super obvious. Do you know the population? Can you give me an estimate? And she said, yeah. So that's good. So you have a rough estimate. You don't know the exact number, but what? What do you know? The number of digits?
Yes.
Okay. So do me a favor. Just think of the number of digits.
Okay. I'm so scared.
Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. How many digits is it?
There's 6.
6. Okay, so we're in the hundreds of thousands.
But I did mention outside that it was about 6 digits long.
Right. Oh, you did say that?
I did say that.
Okay, to be fair, I didn't hear you say that.
Okay.
I think you knew. Do you know the first digit?
Yeah.
Well, this could be like deductive reasoning at this point, but what's the first digit?
4.
Okay, good. So forget about the population. I just want you to think of the place, because I don't want you to think that because maybe you told me. I was going to just try to go for the numbers, but I don't want the audience to think that because you had given me a loose idea of the rough estimation that this is somehow I'm doing this. So instead of the population, let's think of the place.
Okay.
Yes or no, is this a place that you've been to? Actually, you know what? Don't even answer that question because, again, I don't want people to think that maybe I'm probing you or that I did some research. Interesting. All right, so I know that the population of this place is fairly small, but again, I don't know whether she's thinking of a state, a city, a country, so we know it's probably around 400,000, give or take, 500,000. But again, if this was a city, that'd be a lot of people. If this was an entire country, that'd be small. Focus on this now. I'm getting the impression that you're thinking of a place in Europe. Not necessarily Europe, actually. I'm seeing it is in the West. No, it's in the East. It's definitely in the East. I'm going to go with this. I'm seeing the Middle East, actually. Small place.
Oh, I'm scared.
This is so weird because I don't want you to look at the screen yet.
Okay,
because
I'm not gonna look.
This is weird. This is where my buddy lives, but this was the first thing that I was getting. Now I don't know why, but I think that this might have something to do with like the size and the shape of this place, and that's why I don't want you to even see it. So I'm gonna throw that out. Okay, focus on this place now.
Wait, then what was that?
That was my initial impression, and I think it makes sense now. Just be honest, yes or no only. Are you thinking of Israel?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Can you think of a more specific place in Israel? Focus on the first letter. What's the first letter?
T.
T. So it's Tel Aviv, isn't
Yeah.
it? Nice.
Was that what you showed to the camera?
I actually wrote Rhode Island.
Oh, interesting.
Because I was getting like a small like state, and then I realized, wait, we're not in the U.S. Okay, so my first initial reaction of being in the Middle East led me to know that it was Israel. So that was just kind of like a gut feeling I went with.
That was cool. I just like now I hate this because I'm so easily impressionable where like I went to the UFC for the first time and right after I started taking jiu-jitsu.
Really?
And so now I'm like,
she's gonna be like
cards.
a level 7 mage by next week. Watch.
It's so cool. You have like a secret talent.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, so I used to tell people like, you know, when you're in like those ice breaking groups and somebody says, "Oh, what's one interesting fact about you?" My whole life it was I do magic, but now I do it professionally, so it's no longer an interesting fact. So I had to come up with something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you show me how to do something cool with the cards?
Yeah,
or is
sure.
That...
I mean, well, it might be a little bit more tough to do because this deck is a little bit older, but that's called a fan, and you can see that the cards are sticking in clumps.
Yeah.
That's just because the finish
chunky.
on them is worn down over the years. But I could give you a little bit more of a hands-on when we're done, and I can show you.
Okay, great.
Okay, but it's very simple. You can learn that, and then once
so that's where I'll take my headshots.
Yeah, that's where she'll be next week, and then after that, she'll be doing this.
What's that called? Spiderweb?
This is just called Cardistry, cutting and shuffling the cards in an interesting way. And you can spring the cards, but I want to be delicate with them because they're grandma's deck.
Grandma. Shout out to grandma. Yeah, my grandpa did a little bit of magic. Do you feel like it used to be more popular, or do you think there's like maybe a renaissance? Or
you know what? I think it kind of goes in ebbs and flows, up and down. You know, in the early 1900s, magic was huge. I mean, I think it was at that point. Is that when
it started?
Well, it actually started way before this. I mean, the oldest magician of all time, or the most well-documented magician of all time that people don't realize is Jesus Christ. You know, Jesus was a magician. He was the original OG magician. But therefore, you'd have to
believe in Jesus.
Right. So it's so that's where I was getting. So if you look at him as a person and the things that he was able to do to lead a population of people and create hope in a religion, and to do the things where, you know, you hear about these biblical figures like Moses, where he parted the Red Sea, and you hear about Jesus turning water into wine. People saw him do that, or so they say. So it leads to the question, did he really turn water into wine, or was he just a really good magician? So that's always a fun thing. But magic itself has really evolved over the years. You know, you look back, fast forward, you know, several thousand years. maybe to the 1600s even, and you see like the Salem witch trials where, you know, there was in America where people were saying that there were heretics and witches and wizards, and they would literally get hanged for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they'd throw you into a burning fire or float you down the river to see if you would float or sink when you're tied up. And she sank. She was a witch. You know, like obviously you're going to sink.
Yeah.
So there was that period of time. Fast forward a little bit more, there was, or even before that and around that time, you had shamans and witch doctors who would use magic and voodoo to heal and to, you know, to influence in that regard. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah, and like, do you believe in that kind of like the more witchcraft wizardry?
In a way, I think it's all situational. It's socially aware, like socially prevalent because of the tools and resources people had at that time. I mean, this is pre-computer, telephone and telegram. You know, this is a different era. So back then, when you would hear about this man who turned water into wine, it was a true miracle. And there's no surprise why anybody would then say, oh, this man has a religion, I'm going to follow him. I just watched him turn water into wine. Like,
I like the way you say water.
Water, yeah.
Very
I'm a New
East
Yorker.
Coast.
Yeah. I'm like a chameleon. I like kind of adapt to where I am.
Yeah.
I pick up the different dialects.
Do you think chiropractors are modern day witches?
My wife believes big in chiropractic. I've never been to one.
I love going to the chiropractor,
she
but
was 3 times last week.
Oh, it's the best. It's such a good feeling. But I was reading something. I mean, I don't know. I support chiropractors. I love going to the chiropractor.
There's some wild stuff that they do.
But I do think that some of it, it's just hearing the crack is so satisfying that I'm like, I don't know if I feel better,
but you
like,
walk out of there feeling like you should.
It is like a magic trick where you're like, how did you make my spine?
You know what? I don't know. Like I said, I've never been, but according to her and her family, it really helped like cure her childhood asthma. So, hey,
wild.
Good for them. I mean, they know something I don't. So
yeah. How do you feel, maybe this is totally unrelated and ignorant, but like about tarot cards and like, I feel like there's
I think they're really interesting.
There's a group of white witches, white female witches, especially in LA, who are like,
the crystals and the tarot
it's a lot.
Cards.
It's too much.
It is a lot. That's a different realm than me. But again, this goes back to like kind of like the evolution of it. So we were talking about like in that period in the 1700s to 1600s, and it slowly started to evolve. And it wasn't until the late 1800s, early 1900s, that's me ringing. Let me just send the phone to the office business line. But I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that's where magic really transitioned. It transitioned from this belief system, a way to kind of herd people into hearing your message or whatever it may be, into using it as the first type of form of entertainment. So his name was Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. He was a French magician.
Is that where Houdini got his name?
Yes, actually.
Wow,
so he was Houdin. Yeah, good observation. And actually, I don't know how true this is because I'm not French, but supposedly if you add an I to something in French, it means to be like or to interpret from. So Houdini got his name from Howden and added an I to be like Howden. That's legend. I don't know how true that is. But what's also interesting is that not only did he admire him, but he was like a rival in a sense that he would try to expose some of the things that he did. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff. You can easily find this information about Houdini, but Sir Conan Arthur Doyle, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name, the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes. And there was some like heated rivalry between a lot of people in that era. But it was Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin who was the first modern magician. And he had a quote that said, "I'm not a magician. I'm just an actor playing the role of a magician."
Oh, I like
so he was the first person to actually use magic as a form of entertainment, as a way to entertain rather than influence. And it was around that time, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, in the Vaudevillian era, during the First Great War, where things started to become, you know, a hot spot for that type of entertainment, and it spread worldwide. These people were based out of the East Coast in the U.S. You know, obviously the U.S. was still growing and developing, and they would go and travel on ships for days and weeks to get to Europe to do a show or to open at the London opera houses, and they'd come right back and they'd perform in off of Broadway in New York. You know, and they would travel in little carts with horses and by carriage with all of, you know, their props and their whole team and their animals that they used for their show, literally through treacherous mountains to get to Washington to do a show. A lot of really crazy stuff, but it was around that time where magic evolved. And since then, it's been through its ebbs and flows. You know, it's been popular on TV. In the 70s, Doug Henning had his magic show. He had like a Broadway show, but it was also televised. Blackstone before him. David Blaine, the father of modern street magic. He was the first person from New York to go out there and to film raw reactions of him freaking the hell out of people. And it caught wildfire.
How the fuck does someone get an elephant in Vegas? Wasn't that one of his things? He like made an elephant disappear.
Yeah, that's David Copperfield.
Copperfield.
But yeah, he's done some crazy stuff. He's made like the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Is there a different like genre? Because there's like with comedy, there's like alternative comedy and like whatever. Is there like, because people do like the cut someone in half type of
so that's like
magic.
grand illusion.
Okay.
So you have like illusion, then you could really break it down more, but you have illusion, you have close up, you have parlor, you have stage, you have mentalism, you have hypnosis. There are a lot of different branches, and then you can break it down even further. Like let's just say close up, you can go coins. You could be a coin guy and do a lot of coin magic. You could be a card guy and strictly do card magic.
Yeah.
You know, so there are a lot of small little avenues you could branch off to from there.
I used to work at a chicken wing spot. I don't want to brag, but it was pretty cool. And outside there would be these guys kind of like street hustling where they'd have like a little tray or platter, and they'd have bottle caps, and they would put a coin underneath. And they would have a plant. They would have a plant. They wanted to recruit me because they're like, everyone's going to trust you. You're like this innocent little white girl, you know, whatever. Right. And they let you win a couple rounds.
Yeah,
but then
that's the bait.
And they make so much money.
Yeah, well, they do it even now. I mean, in New York City, you can go into like East Harlem and you can see them set up with a cardboard table. And the reason it's cardboard is because they break down as quick as they set up when the cops are coming.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
You know?
I've seen it all.
And they have they have a like a roux. I guess I'm not looking for the right word here, but they have somebody who's part of their scam, and they offered
like me a good cut.
Yeah, they pay out, and they have you come up, and they give you the cash, and they say you'll bet 20 on this round, and they're big with the 3-card Monty. So you usually see the cardboard table, 3 cards face up, 2 red cards like a red 2, like a hearts and a diamonds, and then a black queen in the middle. And then they turn them face down and they shuffle them. They say, keep your eye on the queen. They even do a variation of this at the 7th inning stretch at Citi Field.
I was about to ask if
Yankee
you
Stadium.
go to a Dodgers game and they do like the ball under the hat and they shuffle it around.
They do the baseball underneath the hard hat and they move them around and everyone guesses. And it's the same kind of idea, but they're using sleight of hand to mix the cards and to manipulate you. So it's a very difficult game to win because they know where you're going to say. They want you to say this card, but it's the other card.
Yeah.
And even if you say the right card by accident, let's say you missed it, they have a way to switch it while they're turning it. And it's very interesting because it's an old hustle, and they're not even magicians, the guys who are doing this. And they do exactly what you said. They come up to you and say, shill, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
They say, listen, you're gonna help us out.
We're
gonna give you $100 at the end of the hour.
Yeah.
We'll give you some 20s. You'll win. You'll just get really excited. You'll make a lot of noise when you win.
Yeah.
And then what happens is people on the street, the tourists who are coming to Manhattan,
they
who have
win.
no idea what the hell they're getting into, they're like, wow, that girl just won. It was that easy. 3 cards, I'll do it.
And then they let you in a couple times. You're feeling good.
And then they do double or nothing.
They'll walk people to the ATM down the street to pull out more money. And that's why I was like, I can't be.
I'm done. I gotta
leave. If people are just spending whatever cash they have in their pockets, fine, whatever.
But when you're going to withdraw money to play this game,
it feels dirty. I'm like, that's too much.
Definitely.
Should we do this?
Yeah, we should. We absolutely should.
Okay.
Okay. So in the deck, I made a little bit of a prediction. There's 52 cards in there, even some jokers actually, and I'm going to have you think of a card, okay? I want you to think of any card in the deck.
Okay.
Now, here's a couple of important things. One is that if you ask somebody to name a card, there are statistical anomalies. There are cards that people traditionally go for. One being the Ace of Spades. I have that card tattooed on me. I've got quite a few on me.
Don't you think also, I feel like on TikTok, I don't know if you partake in any
I'm
TikTok.
not on TikTok, but
sometimes they'll be like, test your intuition.
Right.
Like, what animal do you think is going to be under this?
Under the cup.
Under the cup. And
Right.
so I'll like really be thinking about it, whatever. But I feel like whenever it's a numbers thing, if it's between 1 to 10, a lot of people go with 3 or 7.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're already
So I'm already trying
You're already
not
keen
to
this
do,
game.
yeah.
Right. And if you ask a man, most men will say the ace of spades. I mean, it's just a strong card. It's a visceral card. It's something that everyone can remember and think of. You know, you think of Motorhead, that song, the ace of spades. Like, you know, you can't avoid it. It's the most popular card. The second most popular card is the Queen of Hearts. This is the card that most women name, and it's the second most commonly named card for men. But there's a whole slew of cards in between. Obviously, we have clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds, right? So we have a lot of suits, 4 seasons. And we have a lot of values, ace, 2, 3, all the way up through jack, queen, and king. I'm going to ask you to name a card. Not yet, though. I want you to think of it first. But I'm going to give you a chance, Allie. I'm going to give you a chance to change your mind because later when I leave here, I'm going to another show when I leave here today. But later tonight, you're not going home until tomorrow. Is that true?
I'm leaving.
So she's got
Wednesday
an LA studio, but she happened to come all the way out here just to interview me in New York. So we're in New York right now, and you're going back home. But when you get home, that's when it will hit you. A couple days from now, you'll be at home, you'll be in bed, you'll be looking up at that ceiling fan. And if you actually have a ceiling fan, that's creepy. I hope you don't.
I do not in my bedroom.
Okay, good. So let's just imagine you're looking up at the ceiling, and you're thinking, because the thoughts will be going round and round. She's going to be thinking, man, what if I changed my mind? And she will never know. So now is the only opportunity that you have to be sure that the card in your mind is the one that you want. Now, here's the catch. Even if you tell me you change your mind and you don't, we'll never know. Your audience will never know. They have no idea the card that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And even if you do change your mind, you'll never know if that was meant to be. But again, the choice is up to you. Whenever you're ready, just tell me, yes, I have a card.
Wait, are you saying this whole change your mind thing because it might not be? Like the prediction might not be
Possibly,
correct?
but also I don't want you to have any doubt when I leave here that, you know, oh man, he didn't really give me an opportunity to change my mind and I went with my first instinct. I really want you to be certain that this is the card that you want.
I don't know.
See, this is why I give people this chance because hopefully if this does go right, you'll see why this is intense. So do you have a card in mind?
Yeah.
You got one?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, you can still change your mind at this point because in a moment I'm going to ask you to tell us.
Should I go with the first or the second?
That's up to you. I don't want to influence you anymore at this point.
It's got to be right no matter what I choose.
Well, maybe not. Maybe
I
not.
fucking hope so. What a way to close out the podcast.
For real, right?
Like, do more tricks.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the very first time, what's the card you're thinking of?
I say it out loud.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been done, so.
Red, 5 of diamonds.
Five of diamonds or heart? Because you said red.
The diamonds.
Now that you've... Okay, hold on. So 2 things. You saw me write a couple things down before I handed you that deck out there. I don't know if you were consciously paying attention, but you probably saw me writing.
I wasn't really paying attention.
Okay, because we were waiting for the podcast to start. A lot of stress. So I actually wrote something, but I'll give it to you in a second. I'll show you what I wrote in a second. But now that you've said the 5 of diamonds and that you know that I know the card that you're thinking of, I'm going to give you one more chance. Do you want to change your mind?
Oh. Like I don't, but I do.
The pressure is on.
This is so, like, you know how guys are always like, a girl never knows what she wants to get for dinner? This is worse than that.
Yeah, it's way worse than that. And my whole image depends on this, Allie. So name the right damn card.
Do you want me to change my card?
It's up to you. I want you to be confident that there's no way I could have known.
Well, here's the thing. I know what the other option is. So if I stay with mine...
All right, so then tell me what your initial reaction is. Go ahead. What's that card?
The other number?
No, do you want to stick with the 5 of diamonds?
I think so.
Okay.
But I have
Good.
another...
I'm glad.
But I have another one in there.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you didn't change your mind. And let me show you why. Because inside this deck, I actually turned over a card. Now, I'm going to try... I don't know if the camera can actually see this, but I turned over a card. And I'd be lying if I told you that ace was the only card that I turned over, because I actually turned over a couple of aces. Now, I don't know. Can you see these? Can you see these 4 aces?
Yeah.
You didn't name an ace.
No.
I want to make sure the camera can see it, so I'll stand. Now, obviously, we're getting a little bit of a washout with the lights, but I'll take the 4 aces out of the deck, and I'll just place the deck on the table. Now, obviously, you didn't...
I want them to know that I'm watching very closely to see if you pull any crazy stuff.
These are the 4 aces that were face up.
Yeah.
The ace of diamonds, the ace of clubs, the ace of spades, the ace of hearts. But you didn't name an ace.
And I also know that you made some sort of prediction, so I'm guessing... There's no Sharpie on the ace.
Right. So, well, that you can see, right? So here's the thing. You didn't name an ace, and your backup card wasn't an ace either, right?
No.
But you could have thought of any card, and for whatever reason, you said the 5 of hearts.
Yes. 5 of diamonds.
Oh, 5 of diamonds. Okay, thank you for keeping me honest. Well, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
These 4 aces, they didn't even come from this deck of cards. I actually took them out of a different deck of cards right when I got here. I took 4 aces out of the red deck in my box.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote something on the back of each of them.
Okay.
I'm going to turn that over for you.
Oh, boy. Allie will name the...
Allie will name the
what?
5 of...
Wow!
Just like that. And any other card in the deck, no matter what she would have named, it had to be the 5 of diamonds. It couldn't have... Look, our friend over there
My
in the
friend's
studio
here.
is scratching her head outside the door right now. And those are legit. You can see that these are written in my handwriting. That's your name. Check those cards out. Make sure it's exactly as I promised. And boy, Allie, am I glad that you didn't change your mind.
Yeah,
from
what
the 5 of
happens if I
diamonds.
change?
We would have both looked a little silly.
There's no way, like this has to work every day. Like you're a professional magician. This has to
I'm
work.
a risk taker. That's what I do for a living. I take
This
risks.
that's so crazy.
And you can even see the ink smudged from when I wrote it.
This
on the S on the diamonds.
is so wild. Guys, if you don't believe in magic, you have to believe now. Also, there's a 5 right here.
Yeah, that's a 5 of clubs.
5 of clubs.
Yep.
Wow, that is
just like that.
so
And
cool.
Again, any card. It could have literally been 10 of spades. You could even have named the Joker if you really wanted.
You have the coolest job in the world.
You know what? I
no
thank
matter
my
what
lucky
the
stars
haters
every
say.
day.
Because there's magic haters.
You know what?
But I
Luckily for
think-
me, I haven't run into many.
You know what it is? I think it's one of those things where a lot of people like to make jokes. It's like
Right.
the butt of the joke, the magician.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, totally.
But
Comedians all the time. I mean,
I think
I've
the
heard so
reason
many
no
sets.
one says it or why you haven't experienced that is because secretly everyone thinks it's the coolest
Yeah,
thing
they
ever.
envy it. They
envy
they
it.
want
I
to be
envy
the magician.
it. I think that is so awesome. I'm so glad that you came to
Me
do
too.
this
I had a blast
podcast.
coming here today.
And I didn't want to force you to do magic. I'm so glad that you were willing to do these.
There's a gun pointed at my head right now, folks. No, I'm kidding. No, there is no forcing involved. I love what I do, and thanks for having me here, honestly.
At Daniel Nicholas Magic on
at
Instagram.
Daniel Nicholas Magic. Hit me up on Instagram. Shoot me a follow.
You're a busy guy.
I am a busy guy. That's why my Instagram page is not really filled with lots of videos and stuff. That's because I'm working lots of shows and a lot of traveling for shows. But I'm a friendly guy, easy to talk to. If you're ever looking for private entertainment, no matter where you live in the world, I fly wherever. I perform for whoever, small groups. The last show I did in LA before Leah Remini's birthday party was a 4-person party. Literally, another celebrity I'm not going to name drop, but it was for 4 people. So that was pretty
After
cool.
the pod, will you tell me?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you.
Hell yes.
I try not to name drop. I don't like to brag or boast,
Yeah.
but it's fun. I get to meet people, and I can't tell you how many free drinks I've gotten from my friends at bars, or we've went to go hang out as a group, and they're trying to get into the VIP area, and they're like, "Sorry, it's fully loaded," and I'm like, "Come here, let me show you something."
Let me show you
and
a
then
little
next thing you
something.
know, we're taking the elevator up to the VIP area.
Yeah.
So
That's
magic opens up a
incredible.
lot of doors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
Allie.
feel like
appreciate it.
I feel like I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be like, I wish I asked this, I wish I asked that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'll have you back
Yeah, we'll
on the
do-
podcast.
We'll do it again in the future.
And I hope to be able to see you do close up and
Absolutely.
stand up.
Yeah,
magic
the
at
stand up
some
is
point.
really fun.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Daniel Nicholas Magic, hit me up.
Goodbye. That was incredible.
Oh, my friends, they think I'm dead.